Hi, my name is Dr. John Naranja. I'm an attorney at the Diller Law firm. We've been dealing with some clients who have been sustaining burn injuries and helping them and representing them in their personal injury cases. What I'd like to do today is I'd like to talk about burns and help you obtain a better understanding of what's involved with burn injuries. So in order to understand burn injuries, we need to understand the layers of the human skin. The burn injuries that I'm going to talk about are related to the outer covering of our body. You can get burn injuries to other parts of the body, but the primary ones we're considering are the ones that relate to the skin. When we look at the skin and we take a piece of that skin out of the body, this is the block that we're looking at here. The outermost layer of the skin is here pointing at the arrow, and that's called the epidermis. In the epidermis, there are a number of other layers. And then below the epidermis is a layer called the dermis, which is represented by this pink layer here. Underneath the dermis are the subcutaneous tissues, the muscle, and then below that, if applicable, will be the bone. Now what we're looking at here is different diagrams of different degrees of burns. When we talk about burns, that understanding of the layers of skin will be helpful for you to see what a first-degree burn is, a second-degree, 2A and 2B, a third-degree burn, and a fourth-degree burn. If we first start with the first-degree burn, that involves the epidermis, or the uppermost layer of the skin layers. Again, epidermis on the top, this red portion representing the first-degree burn. A common example of that is when someone gets a sunburn. The second-degree burns, both 2A and 2B, involve both the epidermis as well as the dermis. The 2B burns are a little bit deeper in the dermis, but as you can see, it doesn't go below into the subcutaneous tissues here. One other characteristic of the second-degree burns is that they will often form blisters at the top. And so when you see a sunburn, typically it's just red. A second-degree burn will have the formation of blisters. The third-degree burn actually goes all the way through from the epidermis into the subcutaneous tissues. Here, you can see that the blood vessels are in this area, so there's typically damage that includes the blood vessels. And then the fourth-degree burn goes all the way down into the muscles and bone. One of the important things to understand about burns is that severity of burns not only has to do with its degree, but the extent to which it involves the body. One of the things that medical providers do is they think about the rule of nines for burns. And if we look at the body in terms of the front and the back, 9% of the rule of nines has to do with the proportion of the body that's involved with the burn. So if you have the entire right leg, both the front and back, that's involved with the burn, that is a total of 9 from the front, 9 in the back, 18%. Same thing goes for the left leg. If you have involvement of one arm, that is typically 4.5% in the front and another 4.5% in the back, a total of 9%. It's one of the ways it's easy to remember, determine the surface area or the body surface area of a burn. Finally, the front of the head and the back of the head together is 9%, or 4.5% if you split it in half. And that's part of the rule of 9 for burns. As you increase the body surface area of burns, that also increases the extent of risk for both tissue loss as well as mortality. One of the things that's used with the rule of nines is this formula for burns to determine how much body fluid is lost. If you use this formula of 4 mLs times the body weight in kilograms times the total body surface area, you can actually determine how much fluid needs to be replaced. Remember, the skin is used for helping also protect the inside of the body from losing all its fluid. When you lose that portion of skin, any portion of skin, fluid gets lost, which can be dangerous for the body's function. As a result, if you use this formula, you can try and determine through an intravenous fluids how much fluid you need to replace. The next thing that we want to consider is that once sustains a burn, there's a normal process of healing or attempted healing that takes place. As you can see, with normal skin, when an injury takes place, the less deep or the more superficial that damage takes place, the easier it is for the body to respond with wound healing. Here you can see that the stages of wound healing involve first a injury to the skin, followed by inflammation in which bleeding and a blood clot occurs, followed by proliferation in which new cells as well as inflammatory cells come to try and heal the area, followed by maturation. This understanding of healing is important because when one sustains a burn, those inflammatory and healing processes are affected. So what we're looking at here are different grafts that are sometimes applied when someone sustains a burn. The first type is called a split thickness skin graft, in which the epidermis is cut at its superficial most portion. A deeper split thick skin graft includes further parts of the dermis, whereas a full thickness skin graft goes down below into the subcutaneous levels, and local flaps go down into the muscle as well as potentially the bone. This is an example of a split thickness skin graft in which a dermatome, or a instrument that helps to remove that superficial portion of the skin of the epidermis, can be taken from a donor site or a normal area of skin, typically the thigh if it's not affected, and then that portion of skin can be applied to the area of the burn. That's one example of a skin graft. Now, the way the skin graft then heals is that in an area where the burn can't heal on its own because the burn is encompassing such a large area, the skin graft can be placed on the wound bed that's cleaned, followed by what's called imbibition, in which the skin graft is taken into the wound bed. Once that occurs, revascularization occurs, in which blood vessels then attach into the skin graft. And then finally, the skin graft becomes part of the covering of the wound, where it's incorporated completely and remodeled. That's a brief summary of the anatomy and some of the dysfunction that occurs with burns and how it's treated when you sustain these types of injuries. Thanks.